Art Watch. I'm your host, Thomas Higgins, and today we are here with Nate Benson, the director of the upcoming Anchorage Community Theater premiere production of Ran Higbee's At Home with the Clarks. And with us by phone is the author, Ran Higbee. Welcome, Nate and Ran.
Thanks, Thomas.
So, Nate, you and I first met as UAA students in the theater department.
So long ago.
Yes, back in the last century. We're into the second decade now of the new millennium. Nate here is a father with a new baby girl. Besides that, what have you been doing in a theater since graduation?
Well, let's see here. I left after graduation to go down, do some traveling. I traveled to California, the Bay Area, and spent a few years in Georgia. Got to actually work with Dawson Moore, head of the Valdez Theater Conference, when I was in San Francisco, just running some tech for him and did a few play readings out there. And in Georgia, I just did some community theater whenever I could. And then I got the bug to come back to Alaska. Pretty much since then, I kind of hooked up with Anchorage Community Theater, did Wizard of Oz with them, got hooked into that by Ron Holstrom to play the Cowardly Lion, did some acting with them, and then I really felt the need to try directing again. I hadn't done it since college, since graduating from college, and it felt like there was a need over at ACT, and I talked to Ron, and we sort of got that booked, and I've done a few productions with them, done Dial M for Murder, got to do the Underpants, the Steve Martin play, and Lend Me a Tenor, as well as doing one of the four-play shows last year. That's what I have been doing, been keeping busy.
Okay, and Rand, what are you doing down there in the land of Scott Walker?
Actually, I'm living in my grandparents' home, here in Higbee City, right on the border. Yeah, it's a nice little farmhouse, and it's a nice place. After I graduated from UNLV, I thought this would be a nice place to come. It's in the right place. So, and I'm only like an hour outside of Twin Cities where, there's a lot of theater up there. It's really sort of almost an ideal place for me.
So you are a full-time playwright then?
Oh, I wish. Work in the shipping department of a company there, and I kind of sit at a computer all day, and I come home. I sit at computers more to write.
The blurb on the website of ACT about this upcoming play, it says, a traditional 1960s American family faces seemingly insurmountable difficulties involving teenagers growing up, time travel, nuclear war, and a world overran by zombies. This seems a pretty straightforward ACT production. Besides the aforementioned teenage angst, time travel, nuclear war, and zombies, what can the Anchorage theater goers expect from your production?
The idea for it came out of watching a lot of old TV sitcoms, particularly in the era of Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best, that type. And really for a good chunk of the play, like about the first 20-25 minutes or so, that's what it is. You'll be watching an old episode of Leave It to Beaver or My Three Sons or something. Of course, it takes a little twist after that. It kind of from just the whole idea behind it is that, sometimes we look back on that era or shows from that era and think, God, gee whiz, what an innocent time it was back then. And of course, it really wasn't an innocent time. No time really that innocent. The 60s had an awful lot of stuff going on, and it wasn't so innocent. That's kind of the idea behind it. So you start off with a little sitcom, and then things take a kind of weird turn, and there might be a zombie or two, and sort of you aren't going to know quite what's going to happen next. Hopefully.
That's how you wrote it. Nate, you agree with that, or might Rand get some surprises when he arrives here in Anchorage to see it?
Well, we changed the entire ending. No, I'm only kidding. It's such a wonderful script to work with. When I first read your script, Rand, I just loved it. I was laughing the entire time I was reading it, and I thought, this is just going to be so much fun. And then every time I read it, I found some new little twist hidden within it. And I don't know if that's how you meant it to be, but that's what I kept finding. There's we're going to twist, we're going to turn Leave It to Beaver on its head, and then at the same time you've got the addition of the first 25 minutes being that television show, and then it becomes something I think more cinematic. I think it turns into more of a science fiction movie. So we go in from from one genre into another. And I don't know if that's something you meant to do, but it's something I'm having a lot of fun with.
Of course, obviously, I don't really know what's happening with it right now, but I've heard good reports. I do know one of the cast members, Karina Becker, who I've met several times at the theater conference in Valdez. So she's kept me up a little bit on it, though I haven't really been in contact with her for a while. Yeah, that twisted the transition for me when it turns from sitcom into something else, science fiction. That was most difficult part for me to write. That's the part I had to keep going over and over again because, I got into the writing sitcom part, and that was fun.
Right.
I was having a lot of fun with that. Then I knew I was going to have fun once it took that turn, but how to get from one to the other was kind of was a bit of a challenge. So I'm anxious to see how it works on stage.
So when are you coming up?
Let me look at the calendar. I believe I'm coming up on March 19th that week.
Good to finally hear your voice, Rand.
So have you met?
No, we actually have not. I was asked to do this by Bill Cotton over at ACT, and we communicated a little bit over Facebook, and this is our first actual phone conversation as well.
Yeah. I had to actually think if I'd met Nate before because, I come up for the Last Frontier Theater Conference frequently, and I meet so many people. I didn't think we'd ever seen each other before.
What kind of communique can you do, and just quick questions regarding characters, or?
I wanted to make sure I was on the right track theme-wise with Rand. Most of the time you get a script, you don't really have opportunity to talk to the playwright. So you take your interpretation of a script and you run with it. At this point, I wanted to make certain I was on the right track with the level of comedy, also with the science fiction, the zombie attack. Are we keeping it a comedy? I think I asked you the question if you were more inspired by the 50s and 60s science fiction, or were you more inspired by Night of the Living Dead? Those being just two completely different interpretations of your work. Either one of them, I think, would work for your play. And I think I got a little bit of direction from Rand, and that's what we were running with.
Rand had another play produced here in Anchorage by Cyrano's, and it was called The Head That Wouldn't Die. Nate read off a list of his past productions here, and they were comedies. Rand seems to be going into sci-fi. Is this kind of like your guys' home base, or am I pigeonholing you here?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. When I was at UNLV, I got an MFA in playwriting from UNLV, and for some reason back there they really discouraged me from trying to write comedy. I still haven't figured that one out. Post UNLV days, I kind of mixed, back and forth. I'd write a drama, and then I'd write a comedy, and I'd write a drama, and then I'd write a comedy. And I just eventually noticed that people were responding much better to the comedies. So I think it's when I wrote The Heads That Would Die, it kind of dawned on me, like, why am I wasting my time trying to write dramas? I can do it, but nobody really pays attention to them. So science fiction has been kind of a theme in my plays, but not like the last full length I had done. They did out in the D.C. area about a year ago. Was sort of just a traditional boy meets girl type comedy, romantic comedy. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to branch out a little bit, do that too. But always been a fan of science fiction, so that a lot of that I was just kind of reads into my stuff, I guess.
And Nate, so what about you? Is comedy your forte, or just what happens to be available here?
It sort of worked out that way. Actually, the first one I did was Dial M for Murder, so that was more of a thriller drama when I got back to ACT. Then we went into doing The Underpants, which is the Steve Martin comedy, and it was just a lot of fun. Somehow comedies just kept getting thrown my way since then. So I'm not complaining because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, Nate, he directed me, your humble host here, in ACT's production of Lend Me a Tenor, where I was the bellhop. It's fun to do the comedies.
An excellent job, an excellent bellhop you were.
Thank you. whose idea was it to bring At Home with the Clarks to ACT? Was the ACT board decide to do it, or did they have you on board before?
Well, what I understand was that they had a reading in Valdez 2 years ago, I believe.
Yes, it was.
And Bill Cotton, artistic director over there at Anchorage Community Theater, he was involved in the reading, I believe. He knew that it had to be done at Anchorage Community Theater. At least that's what was told to me.
Rand, you said you had another, aside from the Cyrano's production, you mentioned one over in D.C. Are your plays published works that are available for productions, or?
Well, some of them are. The Heads of Wouldn't Die is now published. I have a few one-acts published. There are a lot of, see, I started off really writing for high school students. So if you look at, like on the Google My Name or something, you'll probably see a lot of those plays because they kind of got popular. I have one act called Next that gets done at high schools all the time. And it's kind of odd because I wrote that so long ago. I saw a production of it a couple of years ago at a high school nearby, and I was thinking, wow, I didn't know what I was doing back then, did I? Some of the other plays, the more recent things, like this one I had in D.C., it's called A Girl Named Destiny. I got really good reviews out there, you might say. That was its first production, so I'm looking for more productions of it, and eventually I will get that published. And I have another one like The Lightning Bug that Dawson did at Prince William Sound Community College here a couple of years ago, and it's been done a couple other times. It's good to get about 3 productions or so under your belt with them and then try to publish them, because I guess that's what the publishers are looking for. So the short answer to your question is some of them are available and some of them aren't. Some of them are only available through me right now.
So if you're just joining us, you are listening to Art Watch on KONR 106.1 LP, and we are here with Nate Benson, the director of At Home with the Clarks, and by phone from somewhere near the Twin Cities, Rand Higbee, the author. At Home with the Clarks will open March 8th at Anchorage Community Theater and will run Thursdays through Sundays from there on through March 31st. You can find out more about this and other ACT events at actalaska.org or by calling 868-4913. And Rand, when these productions have went up, how many of them have you seen, and do you do any rework after they have been produced?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. With At Home with the Clarks, since it will be its first production, I will have to think about things afterwards and see is there anything that didn't work there, or anything I might want to rewrite. That's difficult because, it's been, I wrote this back in 2010. We had the reading in 2011, and it's sort of been sitting around for a while. So, we did have a stage reading out here at a college nearby here in Higbee, South Dakota this fall. But that's kind of a long time apart from it. So when I see it again, it's going to be, almost like visiting an old friend again. But that's kind of hard. If I do see something does that need to be changed, it's kind of hard to get back into that frame of mind. But now, like, for The Heads That Wouldn't Die, the TVA did a production of it down at the last Frontier Theater Conference. Of course, they transferred that to Cyrano's, and I shopped this around. I saw a couple other productions of it too. I started shopping it around at the publishing company, Anchorage, that I finally decided to go with. Wanted me to rewrite some of it so that they could turn it into a high school play as well. So there's now actually 2 versions of that play. There's the regular version that was done at Cyrano's and now a high school version of it. And that was really hard for me to get back in, because it had been years since I'd worked on that. To get back in and start having Janice and Penny say things again, that was really hard. I think I pulled it off. Don't know.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a problem, especially if you wrote several other plays in the meantime.
Yeah, that's true, because, when you're done with one, well, then you start going on to other things, other characters, other plots. It can really be difficult to get back into something like that.
Why don't you fill us in on the cast members there, Nate?
Well, let's see here. We have Bill McAllister playing Father Henry. who's been around for a few years in Anchorage theater. I've seen him in many shows. Anyway, my first time being able to work with him, as with many of our cast members. Rachel Gregory playing Alice, the mother, and she's just absolutely delightful. It's our first time working together as well, so I'm kind of thankful for that. We have the aforementioned Karina Becker playing the daughter Betty, doing a fabulous job. We have Aaron Bell, a young actor playing our tiger, who showed up, not quite the 11th hour, but he showed up and just killed it at auditions and has been doing wonderfully ever since. We have Erin King playing Wanda, our time-traveling heroine of sorts. This is her first play, actually her first stage play. She has done quite a bit of film, so she's making that transition and working just great at doing it. Bradford Jackson playing the announcer, who is heard throughout the play, seen very, very briefly, and will definitely be 5 minutes on stage that people will talk about. Though it's a great cast, though, and they're going to be phenomenal. I really cannot wait for you to see it, Rand.
Well, yeah, I'm getting excited about it. Of course, the conference too, apparently.
Yeah, that is what I'm told.
This production, after it closes at ACT, will be taken down and shown off at the Valdez Theater Conference, huh?
That's correct.
Rand, you said that The Head That Wouldn't Die came the other direction? That TBA did that at the conference, and then it came to Cyrano's?
Yeah, that's right. From what I understand, this was 2006. We did the reading of it at the conference, and incidentally, one of the original cast members when we did the reading was Karina Becker. That's how I know Karina Becker. So 2007, Dawson asked TBA to do it as one of the evening productions at the conference, and they did, and it went over so well that I was told later, I didn't know this until a couple of years ago, but Sandy Harper actually came up to Shane Mitchell at intermission of The Head That Wouldn't Die and asked him, would you do this at Cyrano's? And she didn't even have to wait for the second act. Good thing it was a good second act, or she might have said, wait a minute. So yeah, so they did it at the conference in 2007, and they revived it at Cyrano's in summer of 2008.
Oh, that's awesome.
Great. You have been listening to Art Watch, and we have been talking by phone with Rand Higbee, author of At Home with the Clarks, and Nate Benson, the director of this upcoming Anchorage Community Theater production. Nate, Rand, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Come see the play, that's all.
Yeah.
What was that?
Come see the play.
Come see the play, yeah.
That's right. Come see the play at Anchorage Community Theater, March 8th through 31st, Thursdays through Sundays. You can find out more about this and other ACT events at actalaska.org or by calling 868-4913. This has been Art Watch, a production of Out North Art House Radio, KONR 106.1 LP.